Verdansk. It's the map that has the entire Warzone community in a chokehold. It's the only map that everyone has wanted to return to the game, but it was also the map that everyone was growing massively bored with during the first time it was in the game. It's also the map that has the potential to limit Warzone's future, as I'm not sure the developers will be brave enough to remove it from the game once again. So everyone loves Verdansk, everyone loves having Verdansk back, but it hasn't always been this way. This is the rise, the fall, and the rise of Verdansk. Ever since Black Ops 2 released in 2012, Call of Duty's yearly releases just haven't had the same impact with the community as the golden era of COD. So after years of jetpack games and a failed return to the Second World War era, Infinity Ward looked to revive the series with a reboot of the Modern Warfare franchise. Modern Warfare released on October 25th, 2019 to critical acclaim, and it definitely struck a chord with old school Call of Duty fans. And while this was bringing fans back to the series, there were rumours bubbling under the surface that a new Call of Duty Battle Royale could be on the horizon. Now at this point, Call of Duty had dabbled in the Battle Royale genre just a year before in the form of Blackout, and even to this day, Blackout is widely considered to be a success by the Call of Duty community, purely because it had a map full of Black Ops maps and zombie maps, and therefore really struck a chord with the community. However, there was one thing wrong with it.
Hello, I like money.
The game was locked behind the fact that you had to fork out £70 for Black Ops 4, and that title really wasn't setting the world alight. However, on March 10th, 2020, Call of Duty Warzone was released to the public, and it was free to play for everyone, with progression linked between Modern Warfare and Warzone. The game allowed 150 players to drop into Verdansk in a Battle Royale format, but there was a significant twist on the genre. Now, when I was growing up, Call of Duty was the innovative title in the first-person shooter genre, yet with its strong popularity throughout the jetpack era and those dark times, Call of Duty became more of a trend chaser than a trend setter. But Warzone allowed Call of Duty to once again innovate within the Battle Royale genre. So up until this point, Battle Royales, you typically dropped in, you got your loot off the ground, that was how this worked. Well, Call of Duty obviously has the unique sort of twist on this with the form of a loadout. You can customise how you want to play. There was also buy stations to be able to buy teammates back should they die, whereas before you would normally just have to sit and watch them play out to the end of the game. And there was also the Gulag system, which meant that you could fight in a 1v1 situation to redeploy back onto the map. These things had rarely been seen in a Battle Royale up until this point. Now, when Warzone dropped, I don't recall there being a massive amount of hype around the game. Of course, people were having a lot of fun playing this new game, but then something happened to give Warzone a moment it will never get again.
There is growing concern at this hour over a possible outbreak of a mystery virus.
You must stay at home.
Coronavirus outbreak that started in China.
The pandemic meant that people obviously had to stay at home, and for the first time in years, many people were able to sit and play video games all day. And given that Warzone was very much the new game on the block, everyone was jumping on Call of Duty, and the game's popularity absolutely skyrocketed. The rise in popularity for Verdansk saw developers make tweaks to the map, open up new POIs, and ensure that the game remained fresh. Then on the 20th of October 2020, Verdansk hit what was arguably its peak as the Haunting of Verdansk brought Halloween to the game. This limited time mode turned the map from day to night, introduced jump scare boxes, and the iconic Zombie Royale. Now, the changes that we'd seen made to the map at the point of Modern Warfare Season 6 are widely considered to be, amongst the community, as peak Verdansk. That is the best Verdansk has ever been, and probably what we'll ever see again. However, as is always the case with Call of Duty, there's always a new title around the corner, and rumours began flying that with the release of Cold War, we could see a brand new Warzone map. On November 13th, 2020, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War released, and it was integrated into Warzone just a month later on December 16th. This integration did change Warzone, but it was a reskinned Verdansk rather than a brand new map as we travelled back to 1984. If I remember correctly, this decision to reskin Verdansk kind of split the community, because some people love Verdansk and wanted Verdansk to see it, and some people were wanting a fresh new Warzone map, so it was one of those where you couldn't really please everyone. Cold War brought with it changed POIs and new weapons, many of which broke the game. Even though they both come under the Call of Duty title, Modern Warfare and Black Ops are very different franchises, with Call of Duty fans simply preferring one or the other. So at this point, we've been playing Modern Warfare for a year now. It's been quite well received. Warzone's obviously doing really well, but all of a sudden we're having to transfer over to Black Ops. So obviously Cold War brought with it things like the FFAR or the DMR, which these guns were faster moving than what we used to with the Modern Warfare 2019 guns, and they also killed a lot quicker. They were a lot more powerful, and if you're a fan of Modern Warfare and not a fan of Black Ops, this kind of rub players up the wrong way. This was also the first time that we'd see bloat in Warzone, so for the first time we had 2 M4s, 2 MP5s, 2 AKs, you know, the list kind of goes on. And for me, I would say it's this integration right here of Cold War where Verdansk all singing, all dancing sort of Halo started to crack a little bit. There was also another problem bubbling under the surface, and it was in the form of cheaters flooding the game. High-profile creators were speaking out about the problem, and Big Star announced he was quitting the game over the situation, which prompted national news articles here in the UK. The lack of any anti-cheat was having a serious impact on Warzone's player base, and this is something that still exists to this day. Once again, Verdansk's popularity was starting to thin because of this. It is also worth pointing out that it is widely reported that the developers only expected Warzone to be a side edition of Modern Warfare 2019, so there wasn't apparently many plans to continue Warzone beyond this, and I think this is why we have the problem with sort of duplicated weapons within the game. So not only did Cold War bring with it a reskinned Verdansk and new weapons, it also brought something that would transform Warzone forever, and that was Rebirth Island, and of course it's still in the game to this day. Now, this was a reskin of the Alcatraz map from Blackout. Basically, this fast-paced resurgence mode created the perfect hybrid between Warzone and traditional Call of Duty multiplayer, which, you know, we all kind of love and know. And even though throughout Cold War's lifecycle we did see many changes to Verdansk, it was starting to become a little bit stale because we played this map for a long time now. However, Rebirth Island, even though it had been in Blackout, it was kind of shiny and new. So as it was announced that we're going to return once again back to the Second World War era in the form of Vanguard, the community once again started calling for a brand new Warzone map. And on December 8th, 2021, they got it in the form of Caldera. Now, people say that the Black Ops 6 integration was the worst integration that we've ever had in Warzone in terms of how much it broke the game. However, that title for me, personally, has to go to Caldera. There was people on console that couldn't play this game for 2 months after it landed in the game. That's how broken Caldera was when it launched. Aside from how broken the map was, it also played awfully at launch, and immediately the Call of Duty community were asking for Verdansk back. It was like breaking up with your girlfriend and then trying to go back to her 24 hours later. But Verdansk wasn't coming back, the community got what they asked for, and we started to move further and further away from the Warzone that we all once loved. Now, there was always calls for Verdansk to come back throughout Caldera's life cycle, and this kind of particularly grew around the time that Call of Duty announced that they were going to move away from Warzone and create Warzone 2 with the release of Modern Warfare 2. Obviously, Caldera wasn't great, and Warzone 2 was even worse, and I don't even need to sit here and tell you why. We all know why these games were bad, but you could see the influence on the maps like Al Mazrah and even Urzikstan, because there was kind of big urban sections on these maps. However, there's never quite hit the same as the original Verdansk. So we plodded on for years in Warzone without Verdansk, and then something happened in November 2023. And this something didn't even happen on Call of Duty, it actually happened on Fortnite, and it was to do with dropping its OG map back into the game, which saw record player numbers, and if reports are correct, this set Call of Duty developers down the road of rising Verdansk out of the ashes. Then at COD Next in August 2024, it was confirmed that Verdansk would be returning to Warzone in the spring of 2025. And well, the rest is obviously history, because on April 3rd, 2025, we got Verdansk added back into the game, and I will say that throughout the dark days of Warzone, absolutely credit where credit's due to the developers, because the map actually feels good, it looks good, and you know what, it's absolutely a true homage back to the original Verdansk and what we knew and loved back in March 2020. Now, the map isn't 100% perfect, and I'm not going to get into what changes I think should be made in this video, because that's not what this video is about, but it's actually nice to see that some faith has been restored in the developers amongst the Call of Duty community. Verdansk is obviously the most beloved Warzone map we've ever had, and it's gone on a crazy journey to get back to the point of where we are now. However, as history proves with this game, though, that staleness is a thing. Even the likes of Rebirth Island now are becoming very stale for the community. So for me, it's where do you go next with Verdansk? Could we see another fall? Because the question remains is, do the developers dare remove, say, the likes of Verdansk and even Rebirth Island from Call of Duty Warzone once again? And or do they continue down the route of just having these two maps permanently in the game on a rotational basis? Because you have to think that right now, we shouldn't even be playing Verdansk. We should be playing Avalon. That was the map that was supposed to launch with Black Ops 6 Warzone, and it's obviously been delayed, in theory, until this sort of autumn time because of Verdansk's return, but will they release that now? Who knows? So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle it. For me personally, I think having Verdansk, Al Mazrah, and maybe even Avalon on a rotational map basis, like what there is in the Apex, would work best for the game, in my opinion. I don't think you can remove Verdansk from the game ever. But one thing is for sure, that there will be still plenty more twists and turns on the tail of Verdansk.